everyone, welcome to The Five. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, and there is big breaking news on this Sunday. President-elect Trump has just chosen the first members of his administration. In a written announcement released moments ago, the president-elect said he has selected Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus to be his chief of staff, and his campaign CEO, Stephen Bannon, to be chief strategist and senior counselor to the president. Mr. Trump says, quote, "I am thrilled to have my very successful team continue with me in leading our country. Steve and Reince are highly qualified leaders who worked well together on our campaign and led us to a historic victory. Now I will have them both with me in the White House as we work to make America great again." More now with this news with Campaign Carl, who joins us on the phone. Carl, big news today, just in time for our show. Thank you.
You're welcome, Kimberly. They put the statement out just moments after we got a tip that this was underway. And it's an interesting pair of selections. Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee since 2011, reelected to several additional terms after his first chance to do that in 2012 when Mitt Romney lost. He was reelected separately twice more, and of course was the primary author, along with Sean Spicer, the senior strategist for the RNC, of what was euphemistically referred to as the Romney autopsy, where the Republican Party writ large was recommending that the GOP shift to a more moderate middle. Reince Priebus, as the chairman of the Republican National Committee, is the consummate establishment insider on the right, and now he'll be running the White House as the chief of staff. It signals that Trump is serious about governing. It recognizes that there's going to be a tremendous amount of work to do, that it has to be delegated, and there needs to be some experience, notwithstanding his outsider candidacy, to bring about great change that would go against much of what sort of the establishment norms have been. In the person of Steve Bannon, who was the CEO of the campaign, the former CEO of Breitbart News, himself a one-time managing director of Goldman Sachs, a very experienced both news and political and business expert. He was in many ways what Kellyanne Conway, the campaign's pollster and general manager, said was the general, talking to Trump quietly, advising him on which direction he might go on a variety of different key issues, many of which now are quite in a state of flux. The senior staff are saying on a number of issues that Trump took very clear positions on, those things are now in the process of transitioning, and that there will be deal making and bargaining as he puts together a government and tries to work with both Republicans who have the House and Senate and Democrats who will be in the minority and are still very, very bitter and despondent as a consequence of this defeat. So for Trump, these are the first two big announcements. Loyalists, insiders, part of the core team that was the Trump campaign's inner circle. And there are going to be 4,000, almost 5,000 final appointees to the government, both political as otherwise, that have jobs that have to be filled. And these two send a signal that Trump's loyalists and those who were with him as he won this incredible upset election will be part of what guides. He builds a government and moves on. Kimberly?
All right, Carl, thanks for that update. All right, so an exciting additional breaking news day. We like those around here. So this announcement, many were speculating about it, but of course, you know, Reince was kind of trying to push back a little bit to say, you know, he loves the job that he's doing now, but of course he was there right by Trump's side, President-elect Trump's side, the whole way through, even when he was getting pressure from people in the party during tough times, tumultuous times, to try to put Mr. Trump aside, and he did not.
Yeah. So as of Friday, everyone was speculating, was it going to be Steve Bannon, the CEO of the campaign, or Reince Priebus, who came on from the RNC, or Kellyanne Conway, who's the general manager of the campaign. I mean, she's extremely talented, too. So who was it going to be? Was it going to be one of the three, two of the three, all
great
three?
Options to have.
Yeah, he had great options. And you know, apparently what he wanted to do, and again, this is Donald Trump's decision, straight up. I mean, he just, you know, soul searched, maybe talked to the kids, talked to Jared Kushner perhaps, and said this is what it, but what it signals to me is that he wants to reach out to Paul Ryan and work with Congress, because Reince Priebus, as Kimberly, you know, we've had many a cocktail with Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan. They're both Wisconsin people. They're very close to each other. They have each other's back. So, you know, all those people who are afraid that Donald Trump was going to burn the place down first and then rebuild it, maybe you don't have to worry about that if he's going to reach out and work with with at least the Congress, with at least the Speaker of the House. What remains, so Steve Bannon, senior strategist, love this idea because, you know, he's been behind the scenes. He's the one who they tapped into this outsider, this voice, they're not, the left isn't listening to us. It's time, it's our time, and Bannon was the guy who did that, and so he's going to be senior strategist, very important, and that leaves Kellyanne out there and Jared Kushner out there. What are they going to be? I would guess they're going to be some form of senior advisor roles or even possibly press secretary. I mean, Kellyanne, the thing about press secretary, you have to know the policy inside and out. You have to be able to field questions from a hostile press and know what Donald Trump would say, the president would say if he were there. And if anyone has that ability, that would be her. Now there's some names being floated, but you know, my guess would be maybe.
Well, she would be a phenomenal choice. I mean, you saw the way she expertly navigated threading the needle, no matter what network she was on, regardless who was questioning her. She was able to handle it, especially during difficult times when he was under heavy criticism. He does like to have women in his inner circles. Thinks they're smart, stronger than men, and she certainly has proved herself to be so. And again, historic, first woman to be ever lead and win a presidential campaign. So kudos to her. Greg, your thoughts on these two important?
I was just thinking, could you imagine right now if Hillary Clinton had won, what this A block would be? Would we be talking about John Podesta today while he sacrifices a goat for his Sunday spirit dinner? So that's a high point. I think Reince Priebus was a great choice because he's the opposite of a hothead. He's a cool head. Whenever the stuff looked like it was going to hell, he was kind of like always like there, kind of going, slow down, lighten up. It's not so bad. We're going to get through this, that kind of thing. And you look at, and the irony is, look what happened to Chris Christie. I mean, the Bridgegate took a toll on him. Little terrible pun.
Hope you didn't stay up all night on that.
Yeah, it took me hours. Some fun facts. Do you know that Reince Priebus was named Wisconsin Super Lawyers Magazine Rising Star in 2008? Key fact there's a magazine called Wisconsin Super Lawyer. I had no idea. But he's like an idea bouncer.
Top of his resume.
You know what he is? He's an idea bouncer. Someone who you trust will tell you it's a bad idea. He's the opposite of a yes man. He's a no man. He'll try to like say, okay, let's not throw bombs right now. Let's just, you know, kind of like usher you into a more disciplined response.
Right.
Can I just throw one
He's
more
also a visionary. He understood that this was a historic and unique opportunity to bring populist movement into the Republican Party and broaden the tent. So
against what most people, most of the establishment class looked at Reince and said, hey, you're our guy. You need to push back on Donald Trump. And Reince said, no, he's the GOP nominee. We're going to go with this. This is how we win. This is how we get the White House back. And a lot of the establishment alienated themselves with Reince Priebus, and I think, you know, Donald Trump, again, very loyal guy, rewarded Reince's loyalty.
Let's get these lovely ladies in. Lisa.
Thank you. Well, this is also This is also a continuation of what has worked for Donald Trump in the past, because you look at the general election. What did he do? He had Steve Bannon as well as Kellyanne Conway on staff, and what Steve did was sort of, as you mentioned, he was that outsider, that populist theme that helped Donald Trump turn states like Wisconsin that haven't gone to a Republican since 1984 red. That's what Steve Bannon did. But then you also have Kellyanne Conway, who sort of served alongside with Governor Pence as that connective tissue to the Republicans that Donald Trump he knew that he needed to win. And according to exit polls, he ended up getting 90% of Republicans, which was part of the reason why he was able to win the way that he did, including turning some of those counties that went for Obama twice Republican as well. And that's exactly what Reince Priebus is going to do, is serve as that connective tissue to Congress and to Republicans that he needs to get some of these big policy initiatives done. Because you look at the Senate, those are pretty razor-thin margins that Republicans have for majority. So he's going to need to keep his conference in line to get some of these things done.
So to that point, Lisa, one thing that I really like about this Reince pick is that this is a man who's already demonstrated incredible ability to keep really different factions of the GOP together. You're talking about Tea Partiers, you're talking about Trump supporters, you're talking about establishment GOP evangelicals, all these different pockets, right? Which at some point, those rooting against the GOP were excited about the possibility of them all killing themselves. And yet you found Reince Priebus able to steady the ship, as Greg was talking about, keep these guys in order, guys and gals in order, so that ultimately they would have a victory in the White House. And so I really like this pick for that reason. I think it's going to bode well for him.
So perhaps this suggests that there will be additional fantastic exemplary picks. So who else will the president-elect pick to work alongside in his administration? This morning, Rudy Giuliani addressed rumors about posts he may be in consideration for.
Is this true? You want to be Secretary of State?
Whatever I want to be, I'll discuss with the president-elect. That's the best way to do it, not to create more rumors.
You've also been mentioned as a possible attorney general. Is it fair to say that you would like to serve President Trump?
Again, that's a discussion I'd like to have with him. I mean, I'm very happy in my law practice and my security firm. I work all over the world. I have a very, very full life, so it would have to be something where I felt he really needed me, and not that I'd be the only one that could do it, but maybe that I could do it a little bit different or a little bit better than somebody else.
Mr. Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, could also be in contention for a position. She vowed this morning the president-elect will be sticking to his pledge to drain the swamp in D.C.
This is an administration that's going to run very differently than typical Washington. The gravy train is about to have its wheels blown off and its engine completely ripped from its bearings, because there's just no reason to keep this consultant lobbyist access at such an AXIS at such a level where people feel like their interests are not being served. They don't appreciate all the organs and adjuncts of Washington, D.C. working against them. This is an administration for the forgotten man and the forgotten woman.
Okay, so Eric, as you mentioned earlier, Kellyanne Conway really did an incredible job here. We knew that she was talented already, for sure, and then she was with the Cruz campaign, so she's got tremendous reach to all the different groups as well. She stayed on message with Mr. Trump, and then now you hear her echoing those same sentiments. This is about the forgotten men and women.
And that's the difference of Donald Trump, and that's why very early on I said this could be something very different. This could be different for America. We're ready for something different. We've been promised change in the past. President Obama hoping change. But we've been promised change on both sides of the aisle. And we got
Trump change.
Here's what we get. We get another politician in D.C. Nothing changes. The beauty of that, the really kind of thing that makes me happy about that soundbite right there is he's already won, and his senior advisor says, guess what? Everything he talked about prior to winning, he's gonna go ahead and perpetrate after he won, and that means drain the swamp, get rid of the lobbyists, get rid of all those connections, get rid of the networking, and rebuild the place. Again, reaching across the aisle or reaching into Congress with Paul Ryan, but again, from a conservative standpoint, I love this. I love the fact that they're not backpedaling already on things that they promised before, which we've heard time and time again. Fantastic. Great job,
I can't wait for the announcements about EPA and the IRS and, right?
Yeah, get rid of
infrastructure. Yeah, bye.
Yeah. And for people, look, that we're beyond partisan. I always said Donald Trump, to me, transcended just being the GOP nominee. He was able to be something that was appealing to people in the middle. Some Democrats really switched parties to vote for him in Pennsylvania and different states like that. And that's a part of the reason why. He was able to represent, I don't care if you're a GOP member, I don't care if you're the Democrat, I am draining the swamp of all these stiff, uptight, do-nothing people that have been in D.C. for 30-plus years, have given you no return on your support for them, and that's a good thing. So to his point, it's good that he's sticking with that. One point about Kellyanne Conway, why I think she'd be so great as press secretary, not only her ability to convey Donald Trump's message, I think, better than anybody, sometimes even better than Donald Trump himself, but also she's able to say it, be strong, and not raise feelings of hysteria. Because some of the things that President Trump is talking, some of the things he's talking about are going to, rattle some people, seem very kind of, a lot intense. And Kellyanne's strong and tough, but she's able to do it in a way that doesn't really fan those flames of hysteria. I really like that about her.
Well, and I think she needs to be involved in some capacity, because she really was sort of the Donald Trump whisperer. And we really saw, just from the time she took over the campaign, we saw a lot of growth with Donald Trump as a candidate. And I think even his choices today are sort of a reflection of him being a pragmatic individual, because he is able to see what worked for him, and this is a continuation of that. As I mentioned before, he understands this sort of populist tones, the fact that there's so many Americans in this country who truly feel left behind by the elites in Washington, D.C. They feel left behind by the left. And if you look at some of what he was able to do, he was able to turn, you look at the 700 counties that went twice for Obama in 2008 and 2012, he was able to get 1/3 of those to turn to Donald Trump. And it's because he had that message that you touched upon earlier, and that we've been talking about, and Evan, you talked about it as well, of sort of the forgotten man and woman, and reaching out to those. And so I think this is a continuation of that pragmatic approach, where he recognizes that this populist message served him well, but he also recognizes that he needs to get stuff done, and he needs to have those bridge builders alongside with him.
It shows that he's going to get some serious business done. By these two picks already, you should know what's going to happen.
Bridge builders, not bridge blockers. We've learned that. But you have to understand, you are going to need insiders, and Reince is an insider. And the other insider that he really needs is Newt Because Newt, I mean, you can tell Newt is establishment, but he's also one of the smartest people
Genius.
in D.C. He's also somebody that tells Trump what's wrong with Trump, and he needs that. He was when Donald screwed up. Newt would say so, and then the next day he would compliment Newt. He would compliment Trump and say, "That's good." You got to have somebody who can be blunt with a guy who's running the world.
Yeah, with a little bit of classical conditioning.
You can't be surrounded by sycophants because then it all goes to hell.
Well,
You look what happened with President Obama. There was nobody there telling him no.
I agree with that.
Right. Well, they all care about the country. They want to get things done. They've made a promise now, and now you'll see fulfillment.